60 seconds. We're preparing at the moment.
Okay, no problem.
And then I will tell you, I will mute myself and you can go for it. Hold on. And everybody's co-hosted who's giving a presentation, I hope. Okay, you're on.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, and we got a full agenda, I believe, this morning. And I think we're starting off, looks like the Wayne Simmons and Ann Gamble and Josh Schultz to talk about some issues. Last year, our committee was instrumental in discussing their promoting the lighted paddle signaling services devices. I saw that was one work zone one day, and they had lighted paddles, and I'm saying we're trying to protect the safety of our workers on work areas. And so it really struck me as why don't we have that as some sort of policy, because you can see it a lot better than just seeing someone stand there. And so that was one of the issues, and probably we'll get a report on that today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you folks, and you can take it up from here.
So Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll turn it over to others in the team to present on this.
Sure.
I think they have a little bit of a PowerPoint to talk about, not just the lit paddles, but also more comprehensive on what we're doing for work zone safety.
Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. It's your floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning, Senators. My name is Jeremy Reed. I assume you can all see my screen at this point, the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Co-presenting with me this morning will be Ian DeGudis. I am the state construction engineer, and Ian is the traffic operations engineer. And we just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the initiatives that the agency has taken since last year's session. So within the construction section, we've done a couple things to try to enhance safety on the work zones. First, we established a work zone safety engineer within the construction section, and her principal functions are to perform site visits on the sites and provide some feedback on as far as effectiveness and compliance with the MUTCD. She also works very closely with the design folks to make sure that when we advertise projects, that the work zone is constructible and will convey traffic in a safe and effective manner. She also reviews all of the site-specific traffic control plans that are submitted by contractors, and included in that are some of the nighttime lighting plans. I know up in Chittenden County, for example, we use a lot of nighttime construction because of the congestion and try to reduce impacts to traffic. She was instrumental in two initiatives that we've done this year. One, down on Route 7 on the Pittsford project, we piloted temporary transverse rumble strips. So basically what these are is a physical disruption to your motor vehicle as you approach a work zone to basically make you more aware that you're approaching a work zone. And I think the primary target there is anybody who's coming into the work zone with excessive speed or perhaps is distracted by either phones or whatever the case may be. And I think we felt that worked well, but there's still some issues as far as durability and things of that nature. We also worked with Federal Highway to get approval for a driveway assistance device. And what these are, think of it like a very mobile red light when you have alternating one-way traffic and you have a bunch of driveways within the package. And what this does is it reduces the number of flaggers we need within each work zone. As you've probably heard, finding flaggers can be a challenge at some point in time, and the less we subject flaggers to being in the roadway, that obviously increases safety. So we've got 4 projects, 3 contracts that we will be piloting those devices on this summer. With that, I'll turn it over to Ian DeGudis, who can provide a quick summary as far as what the Work Zone Committee has been up to for last year.
Good morning. Ian DeGudis with the Operations and Safety Bureau. I'm the Traffic Operations Engineer. So the work zone steering committee at VTrans has primarily in the past year been overseeing an effort that grows out of a 2018 review that VTrans conducted with help from Federal Highways. It's called a Work Zone Capability Maturity Framework and Process Review. It was a 2-day in-person event with representation from across the agency, where we just pulled everybody together to talk about what we do with work zones, what works well, what doesn't work as well, how we can make those things better. The overarching recommendation that came out of that review was to review, revise, and update the 2007 Work Zone Safety and Mobility Guidance document and the 2011 appendix to that document that VTrans has been using for our work zones since that time. And so the Work Zone Steering Committee appointed a technical committee to guide this effort, and represented on that committee are several of us from VTrans, a representative from Federal Highways, and a representative from the Association of General Contractors. And we decided to hire a consultant to assist with performing the work on that, revising that document, because it's a pretty significant undertaking. Next slide, please, Jeremy. So beginning in late 2019, a little over a year ago, we brought consultant firm VHB on board to work with the technical committee and perform the rewrite of this document. Their rewrite efforts involve a significant review of our existing documentation, review of best practices from other states, review of federal requirements that Federal Highways is including in what we need to do or their recommendations of what we should be doing, an extensive series of interviews and surveys with people within VTrans, within the contracting community, and within the consultant community to figure out what some areas of improvement are and what some best practices that we should be incorporating are. We have currently got a nearly complete draft that is being circulated both within and without the agency for review by those parties. And we are targeting a rollout of spring of 2021 for the new document. Next slide, please. So just to highlight some of the changes and improvements we're looking to make in this, streamlining the development of the traffic management plan form and developing an improved process for sharing and distributing that information. This is a federal requirement, but the implementation of it is something that we think we can improve to make it both easier for us to do and more useful to those who are trying to use it. We've taken a look at the training requirements that are included there, and we're revising them, bringing them up to date with what trainings are available and current best trainings that we can find, and also just expanding that to ensure that everybody is fully trained, make sure everybody working in or around a work zone has the appropriate training for the task that they're doing. Also expanding the list of optional trainings for various job classifications that for those workers who want to expand their skills, have a list of available trainings, working with the VTrans Training Center to get some of those available and easy to access. And an internal mechanism, at least within VTrans, for each bureau to have a sort of a work zone champion to help make sure people know about the trainings, know how to get them, and that they take the ones that they need to take. And working to develop a list of ongoing tasks to continue to work on expanding and adjusting these practices in the safety and mobility guidance, recognizing that work zones are an evolving topic, and we need to, continue to change with the times. So we're working to more formally document the process to review, revise, and keep this document up to date. Believe that's my last slide. So I will turn it back to Jeremy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So as Senator Mazza alluded to earlier, we did do a bunch of work on lighted paddles. And so we started the initiative by creating a specification that we could incorporate into our contracts. And we left the specification purposely vague because on the market today, there's 3 basic types of lit paddles. Some light the perimeter of the paddle, some light the actual letters within the paddle, and some light the body of the paddle itself. So the specification, as I said, is pretty vague. The only real requirements is that it meets our standard specification T30, which identifies reflectivity and size for a standard paddle. And then we cited the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, Part 6E.03, which again has some requirements specific to the lit paddles. For instance, if you've got more than 8 lights, they need to be around the perimeter and help the motorist distinguish the shape of the paddle. The second part of the initiative is to provide a report back on the effectiveness of that. So what we've done is we've created a questionnaire. The questionnaire touches on both objective and subjective topics. So some of the objective topics would be, how available, what manufacturer of the paddle there was, what were some of the technical aspects of the paddle, which model did they choose. And then the subjective matters was, basically asking the flaggers themselves, how effective was this? And, did they feel that it was more visible? Was the function as expected, right? So was the battery life adequate? Was the paddle itself durable? Obviously, these things get banged around on construction sites and things of that nature. So once we compile all of those questionnaires, we'll be in a position to file a report.
So there's
We
no,
chose 10 projects to use.
excuse me, there's no mandatory.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no mandatory requirement at this time that they use them, or no?
There is on these 10 pilot projects.
Oh, okay.
So we've selected 10 projects to use these on, and these are the projects that we've chosen. And what we tried to do is pick a distribution of projects, excuse me, that is spread throughout the state and also touches on various types of work. So you can see, obviously, Craftsbury-Irisburg, fairly rural setting, that's a paving project. Williston, obviously, much higher traffic counts, and that's a roadway project. So we're trying to get different contractors involved with different types of work to get a fair assessment for how effective these devices are, and any other feedback we can get if we want to expand the use or not. So with that, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Senator Kitchell.
Senator Massa. So what will be the criteria or the metrics that you would use to measure effectiveness?
At this time, I don't think we have any one criteria. I think we've got to wait and see what the data says. But obviously, flagger feedback will be one. Our traffic engineer will obviously be looking at the site and different applications. Right, we're using them in both daytime and nighttime. So I think it's more of a holistic approach and not any one specific issue.
I know that we heard testimony, obviously, from a family where in fact a flagger had been killed. We've heard testimony from flaggers saying they jumped over into the ditch. And I just was wondering if there was a baseline in terms of those incidents, but it's probably not. It's more just their life experience and in doing the job.
Yeah, I think you're correct. It's awfully difficult to track close calls, and a lot of that type stuff is anecdotal, and the sample size is pretty small to make any real statistical.
We did hear last year at one point that they were concerned about the cost, and I was just wondering if that's going to be a factor, because safety certainly is ahead of the cost factor. And I know the other ones, the plain ones, are very inexpensive. These will be more expensive, but on the other hand, I can't see why, and I'd be interested to find out they wouldn't be more effective, because let me tell you, you can see those flashing lights from a long ways off, where you can't always see the signs because the signs aren't always the same. But I hope they do a real good analysis of this and don't let the finances enter the picture, because I'm just curious to see how that's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are these we have funding that comes in for highway safety. Are these kinds of signs or anything to help with highway safety? Can we use that funding source?
So
I
right
mean, we're
now,
fun.
so right now, all these paddles are falling under the typical project funding, formula. So whatever that is, but.
So will they be owned by the contractor?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So in essence, they're being funded through just their cost of doing business on a project.
That's why I hope it doesn't, enter the picture, because I think it's an important issue, but, I hope it's handled well and gets a good a review so we can, get it, make sure you evaluate it correctly.
Senator Mazza, two
Yes, go right ahead, sir. Go ahead.
questions. One, I still haven't seen one of these paddles. I think we should get one for the chair so he can like hold it up there in his office. I think it would be, when people talk too long, you can see if that helps.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
But also,
Do you want to make that a motion, Senator?
Maybe you could say free muffins or something like that.
It's a light paddle. But the serious question is on the work committee, the safety zone committee or whatever it's called. Was that just to talk about the paddles, or did you talk about other things? Because I'm trying to remember if it was AOT that was advocating for the ticket by camera, system. That came up the other day, and I was wondering who if AOT had a position on that as far as a way to increase work safety. I know the committee didn't really like the idea, but I was trying to remember if that was AOT or just somebody else.
Yeah, so I think the committee had a broader scope, but I'll let Wayne Simmons speak specifically to the position of AOT regarding enforcement via camera.
Yeah, so good morning. We're going to be bringing forward some ideas on this later as part of the T-bill and the DMV miscellaneous bill. So we will definitely be talking about this. And I know that you've also heard from AGC that there is some interest there from the contractors on the automated speed enforcement in the work zones. And it isn't part of our testimony today, but we will definitely be interested in having a conversation as the session goes on about that. And just to speak about the work zone committee just briefly, it's something that was created a couple of years ago for us to look at precisely things like lit paddles. And you heard the testimony a minute ago about the new work zone mobility guide. That's a very progressive and I think a well-deserved refresh on how we look at work zones holistically. Work zones to me are some of the most complex parts of projects, but they're also very difficult to anticipate all of the variables when you're sitting at a drafting desk or at a computer trying to design the project. So I think what we're trying to do is to put more tools, and lit paddles I think are going to be in that toolbox going forward, but other tools for contractors and people in the field to try to make sure that our work zones are as safe as they can be. So it is a very holistic and active committee, and you just got a sample of some of the things that they talk about.
Okay. Questions at this point? All right, continue on.
So I think we're done. So I'll turn it back over to Wayne Simmons for the next presenters.
Okay, thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the next presenter will be Evelyn McFarland. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to make sure my mic is working, and
Yes.
I will be screen sharing as well. Let me see if I can get that into place. Share screen. And do we have our, just want to make sure my screen is up.
No,
No?
no.
Okay, let's
Have
see.
you been made co-host?
I believe I have been, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. and we tested it. So let me just make sure. Okay, go to share screen. And
Okay.
now?
Yep.
Okay, and so still,
No,
it was,
It-
better here?
it was on momentarily.
Okay, I'm not sure what's
Now-
the, all right, hold on. Now?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I'll take over if you want, Evelyn. It's Liz.
Yeah, so, okay. Not quite sure why we are,
There we go.
We have it.
you have it?
It says
this-
Maintenance Bureau.
This is Maintenance Bureau.
Oh, sorry. Let me get the right one.
There we go.
Oh, wait.
Yep.
This one?
Yep, that's the
Okay.
one.
So just tell me when to, Evelyn, just tell me when you need screens.
Okay, good. All right, so for the record, I'm Evelyn McFarland. I work for the Agency of Transportation in the data unit, and I'm the coordinator of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, as well as the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance. With us today, we have Lieutenant Kevin Gino. He is a lieutenant with the Rutland County Sheriff's Department, and he will be testifying. We also have Mandy White, who will be showing you some of the data of some of the critical data from the critical areas of highway safety. And I will be sharing with you some information on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. We also have joining us is Director Fakos, Director of Enforcement at the DMV, and Allison Laflamme, who is the Administrator at the State Highway Safety Office. Both Allison and Director Fakos, Allison Laflamme and Director Fakos, are members of the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance, and Kevin Gino is our newly elected chair on the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance. So if we can go to the next slide, please. We have the next slide. And we can even go to the next slide. So we thank you for hosting us here today. As I said, 3 of us will be presenting, and we will finish off with Mandy, who has the ability to show you, as I said, where we have been data-wise and where we currently are with our highway fatalities and major crashes. But without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Kevin Gino. Lieutenant
Good
Kevin.
morning, Senators. My
morning.
name's Kevin Gino. I'm a lieutenant with the Rutland County Sheriff's Department, and this is my 45th year in law enforcement. I guess I haven't figured out what I'm going to do when I grow up yet. I work with some of the best in the state from the State Office of Highway Safety in an attempt to reduce serious and fatal crashes in Vermont. I'm the coordinator for highway safety in Rutland County and represent several departments in Windsor County. I worked through a grant with the State Office of Highway Safety and the Rutland County Sheriff's Department. And as you can see from the slide that's presented up there, the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance does a lot of different things to try and make the roads safer for everyone. I'm going to talk about 2020 a little bit and how strange it was for law enforcement. COVID hit in March. I think it was about March 17th. And the word was out there, COVID. And there was a fear of handling other people's documents, especially when you were stopping cars. So everything became more or less a hands-off approach, unless it was a gross motor vehicle violation. I talked a little bit about March 24th, or rather March 24th, 2020. Where I live, I travel several blocks and then I have to cross a busy 4-lane highway to get to the sheriff's office. Usually most mornings I can't cross that highway because traffic's so busy. I came down that morning, I looked right, I looked left, there wasn't a car in sight. And I was like, wow. So usually on some of those mornings, I have to make a right and then make an immediate left to get to the office. I on that particular day, I went through the school zone and it was strange. There was no kids being dropped off. The world seemed like it had slowed right down and there were very, very few cars on the road. Later that day, I went out to do some speed enforcement on a highway and I was seeing a car maybe every 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, this is strange. And most of them were not speeding at that time. It was definitely a different time. Fast forward a month later in April, go out and do some enforcement and we see speeds have really increased incredibly. And instead of, what we think is, 15 miles an hour over limit would be a serious violation, we're seeing 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And we're trying to think why people feel that comfortable in driving these speeds and also driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs. In May, the National Click It or Ticket campaign, which starts the 100 Days of Summer for us and sets the stage for safe highways, was canceled by NHTSA, but with the assistance of law enforcement liaisons, Paul White and Bill Jenkins, Lieutenant Fortin and myself decided we would run a modified version of Click It or Ticket just to see what we could see from motor vehicle violations out there. What we saw was unbelievable. Traffic was at greater speed. People were driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs. It was unbelievable. So we actually, with the blessing of my sheriff here, David Fox, we went back and said, hey, we're going back to enforcement. We're just going to be super careful about how we do it. And there were rules. I mean, we had to wear masks. We had to, if we handled documents, or even if we didn't, after every car stop, you had to sanitize your hands. Your cruiser had to be sanitized once a day. And it took some more time to actually do the job. But then you come along to July, and I think we have Mandy White on here, and she's going to show you that chart. In July, we had a terrible increase in fatal crashes in the state of Vermont. I mean, it just spiked. And once again, we figured after looking at all the dynamics of COVID and less traffic on the road, we figured out that people felt more comfortable on the highways doing these things, driving impaired, speeding, because there was less traffic on the road. So they didn't have any parameters. Like, if you're on a busy 4-lane highway, you kind of mind your own business. You mind your speed and you do whatever to keep yourself safe and others. And people weren't seeing that. So they felt free to operate, in a manner that really was careless. So I think we are turning around a little bit. I think after the July spike, more departments got involved in doing highway safety. And it really started to turn the curve, I think, in August of 2020 and started to go downhill from there. But it just goes to show you, if you don't have the blue lights on the highway, you definitely don't have the fear. The people don't have the fear of being stopped or caught for different infractions. So I think, we're going to continue to work towards zero fatalities. It's a goal now that we've had for several years. And this is where the State Office of Highway Safety and the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance are always looking for better ways to make our roads safer. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Evelyn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Lieutenant. I wanted to just introduce you here today to the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. It goes without saying that public safety is a factor and a priority in all of the projects that come out of the Agency of Transportation, with the idea that we're providing efficient but also safe movement on the roadways for everyone. The role of and the mission of the State Highway Safety Office is to focus specifically on reducing crashes on Vermont's highways and roadways, to serve not only the motoring public, but also to serve pedestrians and bicyclists. And we have the Strategic Highway Safety Plan as our guide for that mission. And I refer to it as the kind of past, present, and future document, because It looks historically at where we've come and what our numbers are data-wise. It measures it against what we're looking at today on the highways. And then we also set goals for the future of where we want to be in 5 years. And if we can go to the next slide, please. We call it the umbrella plan. It is federally required. Every state has a strategic highway safety plan as their overarching plan. And it gets updated every 5 years. The current plan goes through 2021. So we will begin updating the plan this February for the next version. And the data is really the glue. It starts the whole process. We look at who is crashing, meaning what gender, what age group. We look at what they're driving. So that would be whether they're driving a truck or a car, motorcycle, and or whether they're a pedestrian or a cyclist. We can map where they're crashing. We can get time of day, month, year, and then we can also get information about how they're crashing, meaning were they impaired? Did they have a cell phone in their hand? Did they fall asleep? So we can get a lot of information about that, which helps us define the critical areas. Can we go to the next slide, please? We go to the next. So as I say, this is the umbrella document. And in order to measure it, we take, for this plan, we take what I call the 1,000-foot view. It tracks 5-year rolling averages. So it looks at trends over time. In Vermont, we have a small data set. And so to get an accurate idea of where we are coming from and where we are going, using this system of tracking not only the fatal crashes, but also crashes that have resulted in serious injuries, but to track those averages. So we're capturing at any given point 9 to 10 years back to tell us overall how we're doing in the big picture. And our 2017 to 2021 plan called for a 10% reduction in major crashes over the course of 5 years. So on average, 2% a year. We can go to the next slide. And as I said, since Vermont is it's a small state and we update this every 5 years, we then also use that data for setting the goals that guide 2 other plans that are the 10-foot view. So the strategic plan is up here, like at 1,000 feet. Updated annually is what's called the Highway Safety Plan, not to be confused with the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, but that is the annual document that is updated and funds the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration grants. So Allison LaFlamme is the manager of that program, and those are typically funded for behavioral, so in other words, enforcement and educational activities. I mean, that's a kind of summary of it, but that's the 1-year measurement, and all of the data and the goals that are set with that come from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And the next slide.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure. Right ahead.
On the prior slide, for those of us who have done a quick glance of the DMV bill, we are changing everything in statute from accidents to crashes. Is this being driven by the terminology used by this safety plan? At one point in the past was the federal terminology accidents, and now it's crashes, or why is it crash versus an accident?
Well, I don't know if there's something, a federal statute or terminology that is official, but across the nation over the past years, it's been shifting from accident to crash because the word accident suggests that it was not behavioral in nature. That a crash is caused by human behavior, and over 90% of crashes are due to mistakes.
Okay.
So
like impaired or distracted okay.
It's to change the mindset to suggest that no, these actually are preventative. These aren't accidents that happen, and we don't need to accept them as something that is inevitable. That a crash is preventable, and that's our goal, is to prevent it. and anyone else can jump in and add to that explanation if they're.
That was a perfect explanation, Evelyn.
I guess the
Yeah.
only time it might not be true is if it's icy weather or something, and some act of nature. But that's a helpful distinction between since so many of the crashes are in fact related to the behavior of the driver. Thank you.
Right. And I use the analogy of the planes. We don't call them plane accidents. We call them plane crashes and investigate exactly why they happened and causal factors. And so it's the mindset. All right. Thank you. And there is also another plan that gets updated annually, and that's the Blue Dot, and that's the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And that is federal funding that also uses the data and the goals from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and that's infrastructure money. So if the red dot is more behavioral in nature, the blue dot is the highway safety improvement, and those are the infrastructure projects. And the idea of organizing all of this is so that as an agency and as a state, we are looking at the data sets and have the same goals. So we're all marching to the same beat so that we can coordinate and unify our priorities overall throughout the agency, but then also with all of the other entities and stakeholders and organizations that are working in highway safety across Vermont. Next slide, please. And just as important as the data, which tells us where the problems are, we then, of course, need the other side of the equation, which is that we need the solutions and we need the countermeasures for the critical areas that we identify. And Lieutenant Gino had identified, and how he had a slide of the seven, the 7 critical areas. No surprises that in Vermont and in most of the states, there are what we call the 4 biggies that seem to bubble to the surface of each of these: speeding and aggressive driving, impaired driving, distracted and inattentive driving, which also includes drowsy driving. And those 3 causal factors combined with people not putting their seatbelts on, and you have the 4 areas that are really the target areas, the ones that account for the greatest percentage of our crashes. And unfortunately, it's not always just one of these factors. Many times it's one or more of these factors that have led to the fatality or the injury, which is that you have an impaired driver who forgets to put on their seatbelt, and they're on their phone and going a little bit too fast. So there may be one or more factors identified in the crashes. But those, as I say, those are kind of the big ones that are always bubbling to the surface. Next slide, please. And this is where our stakeholders come in. As I said, it's one thing to get the data, but the next side is to look at what strategies have worked in the past, what strategies we want to continue, and what countermeasures or even new projects we want to implement for the future. And that's when the stakeholders get together to oversee the preparation of the new state highway safety plan. So it gives us a chance, and we will have this chance this next year, for all of the subject matter experts to get together to take a hard look at the data and the strategies and the countermeasures and re-outline them for the coming years. The Vermont Highway Safety Alliance, and I think we're very lucky in Vermont to have this very strong coalition, this group of stakeholders who come together. And it's everything from private entities to public entities who come together to look at the plan, but then also to implement some of the strategies and the countermeasures. And as a group, the Highway Safety Alliance plans about 25 or more events a year, a lot of it having to do with public outreach. Everything from the Champlain Valley Fair, where we spend 10 days tabling and engaging the public, to our contest, which is one of the few things we're able to do this coming year, which is our contest for our high school students called 802 Phones Down, Heads Up, asking them to produce a video on the dangers of distracted driving. Can we go to the next slide? And as I said, I bring this slide up because, as I said, this is one of the, the plans that we are able to, or one of the projects we are able to execute to do our third annual project. And for this year, we had AT&T who gave us a nice donation for the cash prizes, but we've also involved the Youth Safety Council, AAA, some of the driving schools. So it's a chance to bring together the safety community to focus on, as I say, one of the big fours in this case, it's the distracted driving issues. Next slide, please. All right, without further ado then, I will hand the presentation over to Mandy White, a data manager. But before I do that, I did just want to say one thing that has to do with how we are tracking and goals that we are setting. We measure things in terms of what we've set. We've set a 10% goal to reduce highway major crashes. But those are numbers. The big mission and the big goal is eventually to get to zero, right? We might claim success one year, but we won't claim true success until no one has died on Vermont's roadways. And nationwide, there is a movement to make that happen by some states 2040, some 2050. But between the re-engineering, car technology, education, enforcement, if we put all of those resources at work, I believe this is something that can happen. And that's our goal. So thank you very much. Now we'll let Mandy take over and talk a little bit about the numbers.
Morning, Senators. As Evelyn said, I'm Mandy White. I'm the manager of the data unit within the Operations and Safety Bureau. I'm going to kind of go quickly through a few of these slides, throw questions out if you have them on any of them. So the first one here is the overall major crash trend. As Evelyn mentioned earlier, major crashes make up our crashes where there's at least one fatality or a serious injury. Currently tracking. The other thing I want to note before I go too far is that the 2020 data is not final. I've put a note on all of the slides to make sure that's very clear. But so far, we're looking at a 14% decrease from the 2012 to 2016 average number to the current 2016 to 2020 number. Next slide, please. So the critical emphasis area for curb speeding and aggressive driving, again, we're looking at a 10% decrease, even though the goal for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan is 20%, so we're not quite meeting that goal currently. Next slide. This one is the critical emphasis area 3, which is increase the use of occupant protection. The goal was to be 20%, a 20% decrease. We're currently at a 13% decrease, so we have some work to do there as well.
Mandy?
Yes.
Next question.
Can you clarify what these graphs are? So this is the number of crashes caused by these things, whether they be seatbelts or speed.
Yes, these are correct. It's actually the average of the 5 years. So we take the total number and divide by the 5 years and come up with that average. So as we roll through, these are a rolling 5 years as well in the graph.
This is based on police reports of the crashes, like distracted driving. How do you know if there's a crash if distracted driving was the result?
So distracted driving specifically would mean that the law enforcement officer would mark or indicate that distracted driving was a cause of the crash, or a contributing circumstance to that crash. And so some of these could overlap, as Evelyn mentioned earlier, right? Like there could be an unbelted person on their phone that crashed their car. So that crash would be double counted or counted in two different areas. Okay, so next slide, please. This is critical emphasis area 6 to reduce impaired driving. The goal for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan was a 10% decrease. We are currently at an 8% decrease. As many of you can probably see, the 2016 to 2020 average is above last year's average. So it's showing that things might be changing in that area. So we'll need to keep an eye on that. We're currently not on target to meet that goal for the plan either. Next slide, please. This is critical emphasis area 7, curb distracted driving and keep drivers alert. This specific critical emphasis area combines distracted related crashes, inattentive crashes, and fatigue asleep crashes. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this. The goal is to reduce crashes by 10%. We are currently seeing a 12% decrease. So we are on target to meet that goal. Next slide, please. All right, so this is critical emphasis area 4A, which is to increase pedestrian safety. We have not met our goal to reduce crashes by 10%. We're currently seeing a 6% decrease.
Do you think the reduction is because of more advertising or promotions or more officers on the road, or how do you figure there's less? What do you attribute that to?
Less pedestrian crashes?
No, when back to the automobile crashes or drugs and alcohol, for example.
Any of those?
Yeah.
There can be many reasons that those are going down. I know Allison's Governor's Highway Safety Program does a lot of outreach for behavioral issues. I'm sure you'll be hearing from her on a lot of the things that they're working on to decrease these crashes, these specific types of crashes.
I would also say there's less traffic on the road, and that might account for some of it.
For 2020, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a factor, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, next slide. 4B is to increase bicyclist safety. This is our biggest decrease. I don't quite know yet why. When I was looking at the data for 2020, it was very low for this year, for 2020. So we're currently looking for a 10% decrease by the end of 2021. We are seeing a 43% decrease currently, which puts us on target to meet that goal.
I think there's a lot of bike lanes that weren't there before. I mean, a lot of communities are putting bike lanes in. I know in my town of Colchester, there's a lot of bike lanes that never were there, and I think they're certainly are safer than riding on the highway or edge of the highway.
Yes, I think communities are definitely opening up the opportunity for biking more safely. Great. Next slide. CEA 4C is to increase motorcyclist safety. The goal is to have a 10% reduction. We are currently seeing a 17% decrease. That would put us on target to meet that goal. Next slide. Improve younger driver safety for drivers under the age of 25. We are looking to have a 15% decrease, and currently we're seeing a 21% decrease in those crashes. So that puts us on target to meet that goal as well. Next slide. Improving older driver safety for 65 and over drivers. We're looking to get a 5% decrease in the major crashes. We're currently seeing a 2% decrease. We're not on target to meet that goal. Next slide, please. All right, and the last two here are the lane departure and intersection crashes. Both of them are showing decreases. Lane departures, we're showing an 11% decrease, and for intersections, we're showing a 14% decrease. We are on target to meet both of those goals. In this final graph, Lieutenant Gino alluded to this earlier. I threw this together yesterday because we were talking about the increase in fatalities and serious injuries in the summer months following the COVID reopening of things and people moving about more and more. So you can see May was kind of still below. So the green line is the 2020 serious injury crashes, and the gray line is the 2019. So I tried to compare the two just to see where we were at. And so we kind of see where that flips in June and July, where those numbers really change. And then the two lines below that, the blue line is the 2020 fatalities, and the orange line is the 2019 fatalities. And again, you can see in that June, July, and August timeframe, we really showed an increase in comparison to 2019. So, all right, next slide. This is a fatality spreadsheet that I put out once a week to keep a large group of people aware of how things are looking. Currently, we have, actually there's 2 fatalities in Vermont in 2021. I need to get this updated, but the numbers for 2020 are currently 61 fatalities and in 57 crashes. There's a breakdown of the different types of impairments that we're seeing. So alcohol only, drug only, or then the combination of the two. There's also the number of fatalities that are speeding related. I also break it down by junior license operators, older drivers, major large truck or bus, and then the motorcyclist fatalities. So just as a visual of how that breaks down by year. And then this is the last one, is the restraint and safety equipment usage by motor vehicle occupant user. So for motor vehicle occupants, we're looking at unbelted versus belted, whether they're the driver or a passenger. And then for motorcyclists, I'm breaking it down by whether or not they're wearing a helmet, whether or not they're wearing a helmet improperly, or if they're not wearing one at all. And then finally, I just break out the vulnerable users so that people understand that those people aren't going to wear a seatbelt, obviously. So we got to kind of break that down. So when we look at somebody not wearing a belt, we're looking at the right amount of crashes.
Do you look at characteristics of the behavior, for example, age or gender, as it would relate to the use of safety equipment?
I can. And we do when we're looking at the Strategic Highway Safety Plan data. And then also for the Highway Safety Plan for the Governor's Highway Safety Program. I don't do it in my weekly reports necessarily, but I can definitely do those types of breakdowns.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, that's it for me. Thank you all.
Any questions? Covered quite a bit in this section. Are there any questions out there? Yes, Senator Pritchett.
Well, I don't know if this is really a question for Ms. White or others, but it's a general highway safety question. I don't know if there's more safety presentations, or is that it, Evelyn? You're muted.
Yes, that is it for our group for today. Yeah.
Okay, well, my overall question is, giving the severeness of impaired driving, and it seems like you're trying to run a really data-driven program and data-driven policies, how you all that are focused on this feel about the BAC limit that we have in the state, and the clear data that shows lower BAC limits help, but total reluctance from anybody in charge wanting to address the issue, as I found out when I introduced a bill to lower the BAC limit. I didn't get a lot of support for that, to say the least. So I just wondered what the folks that are the most focused on safety, if you've looked at that, and if so, why it doesn't kind of show up in any of the recommendations. Even if it isn't, we should lower the BAC, but if it could be, hey, look what a 0.5 BAC does for impairment, even though the law is at 0.08. So those kind of things, I don't ever hear that from the folks trying to advocate more safe highways.
So I'll jump in. I don't have much to add to it, but I do know there was discussion of it last year, and we talked about not having enough data yet to know whether to support it or not to support it. And so it has not come up as a discussion this year as of yet, but that was the discussion that we had. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Well,
But it's certainly something that we could try to get some information on if you're interested, and trying to look at updating some of our data resources on that topic.
yeah, there seems to be a lot of clear data on it, so I don't think there's a lack of data. There's probably a lack of data in Vermont, but overall, there's pretty clear data.
So we do collect BAC on the crash report form. So there is data on what operators BACs are. I know that there's only, maybe I've read a little bit about this, so I know there's only 1 or 2 states in the nation currently, right, that have 0.05. Yeah, so I don't know if it's a lack of information on how Vermont will handle it, but I know we do have the BAC information if you're interested in that.
Yeah, that would be interesting, but I'm assuming they're only doing the test if they're expecting the BAC to be over the legal limit.
Yeah, as they suspect impairment. That's how they're testing.
Right.
May I chime in?
Sure, go ahead.
Of course.
And I know Director Fakos would like to say something too. We have, in anticipation of this discussion and for our information in the Highway Safety Office, we've requested from Utah, I believe, just switched up their law a couple years ago. Last year, we requested information from them, but they weren't able to release it to us. So we are starting to work with them again to get that information to see if they will release it. We also, at the 1-year level in the Highway Safety Office, did not make our goal of alcohol impaired fatalities. It's very specific, only alcohol impaired fatalities. So our office is working on putting our carry forward money. It's a requirement of NHTSA. When we don't make our goal now, we have to look at individual projects or potential new projects. One of the things we will be putting more funding into is ARIDE and SFST training at the Criminal Justice Training Council, as well as more. We have a Drive Well Vermont campaign that just released. You might have seen the ads coming out. The first one is on distracted, and we are building an impaired driving campaign as well, in addition to the education programs. One thing that I would love to see is a statewide curriculum that is used standardized for all high schools. So that's something that, to educate younger drivers as they approach that drinking age, because we know that they drink before the 21 age. So there's all types of things, the holistic approach to adding more impaired driving projects.
Okay. Yes, Tony, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want a couple things. I just want to add to this part of the conversation. Part of what Allison's talking about as well is when we think about contemporary policing, 21st century task force model, for example, procedural justice. A big part of that is, does the public believe that that rule of law is there for a reason? That's where education is very important. That buy-in you must get from the public, is what we're doing fair. The other thing, I'm going to be really candid here. The elephant in the room is everything. You could have some of the most robust, laws in the world, but if we don't have the resources, this goes back to what Lieutenant Gino said in the very beginning. I know as a chief of Montpelier, I did not have the resources to participate in many of the programs to support the Highway Safety Initiative. We did what we could, but across the state, we're looking at Burlington PD. My understanding is now down to 79 police officers from a force of 105. Recruiting retention problem that we're having not only in Vermont and nationally, and then also too, just be clear-eyed to the impact of how law enforcement is perceived right now. In other words, you look at stats, whether it's race data collection, we're doing some wonderful things in police reform, but we have to kind of take a step back and look at the big picture of what are we trying to accomplish in highway safety, and do we have the real resources that we need to implement, what we want to accomplish? And I think I don't hear that much, and anyway, and that's my 2 cents.
That's a very good overview. I think it is true. Police are having a tough job right now, meeting budgets and trying to deal with the public. And wow, I don't know, it's tough job. Any other
one last
comments?
thing?
Go ahead. Yep.
If I could just add one last thing, sir, back to what also Lieutenant Gino was talking about. I participated in a webinar a couple of months ago from at a national level, and there were a couple of colonels. I want to say one was Washington State, the other one was Colorado Highway Patrol, and I can't remember the other one, but they were talking about the impact of law enforcement and operations in a COVID environment. And one thing they were saying, again, nationally, they're all experiencing exactly what Lieutenant Gino described. Suddenly it's just the summer, crazy speeds and corresponding, catastrophic accidents. And there's a big change too, though, of what we know about COVID now in terms of safe practices, which Kevin spoke to, as well as the availability of PPE. I mean, when this first happened, public safety was scrambling. What can we get for mass? I mean, we were really fortunate. We had a lot of N95s because, in our for crime scene stockpiles. But what we realize is that what we know now is we can safely, in a very as controlled as possible, be out there. One of the things that I've directed the commercial vehicle team, instead of, even though the numbers are absolutely, been horrendous these last few months with COVID, but we felt that we could safely manage our, inspection details, and above all, our trucks and our, needed to be out there, be visible, and do everything we can to help, calm the public that, hey, we are still out here. So I think we're doing a lot better than, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're doing much better now. And I applaud Rutland County, for example, of, in a measured way, we can safely balance highway safety as well as keeping our staff and the public safe in terms of COVID. So that's, just wanted to add that piece to it.
I agree.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions out there? Well, I thank everybody this morning for a good presentation. It was excellent.
Thank you all, and we will
sure
turn the floor back to Wayne Simmons, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chair, the final presenters this morning are from the Maintenance Bureau. We have a number of presenters.
We're going to take a break right now.
Okay.
Just I'm getting the message from the members, they want a break. So let's reconvene at 10 after.
10 after. Everybody please mute and take off your videos. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm unmuted, I think. Anybody else? We're getting back on track here. How are we doing?
I think we're good.
All right, I guess we'll set the rock and roll.
All right, Senator, I misspoke right before we left for break, and actually the next report out is Jesse Devlin and John Kaplan on our bicycle and pedestrian safety programs.
Fine, whatever order you want to take them, fine. Yep. Go right ahead.
All right. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
So I'm not sure how we're doing the slides. Should I just share my screen? Is that the best?
Yes.
All right.
You get to work.
So I'm getting a message that says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I'm not sure if I need to get given some permission, but.
Okay, hold tight. Okay, John, you should be set. You're all set.
Okay. All right. Hopefully you are seeing a slide that says bicycle and pedestrian safety and access.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Thanks very much for having me and Jesse present some information. So when we thought we would start with kind of the big picture and then get down to a little bit more detailed information about sort of how we incorporate improvements for biking and walking into projects.
Okay.
So, so just starting with how does walking and biking fit into the agency's strategic plan? The mission and vision statements from the strategic plan are up here. And I think the key things are that walking and biking are efficient ways to get around. They provide transportation options for Vermonters. They're relatively low cost. And then in addition to meeting those components of the strategic plan, they also help contribute to some broader goals in the state around health, economic development, helping kind of work to combat climate change, and then generally quality of life. So I oversee the bicycle and pedestrian program, and so I thought I'd just mention a few things. So we do have our grant program, which typically is around $4 million in federal funds and $300,000 in state funds, and that goes to municipalities for to help them with their local projects. I would say a big component of what our program does is provide technical assistance, both within the agency and to external partners. And that might be design guidance. We do some training and just kind of general collaboration within the agency and with external stakeholders. And then another thing that we work on is safety education, and this ties in somewhat with the previous presentation, because certainly we work together with the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance and in general with the folks that you just heard from. So we do develop some materials that are out there for the public to use, and then try to work on kind of in-person education, and that's mostly through collaborating with other organizations like Local Motion, which is a statewide bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. So a couple of recent projects that we undertook to help us understand better where to focus resources were the on-road bike plan that we did several years ago. There was 2 phases of that. So just a real quick overview of that and what the outcome is or was. In phase 1, we evaluated the whole state road network to identify which roads were most important for biking. And that was based on current use. We had some data about how much certain roads were being used for biking. And it was also based on potential use, as well as just getting input from the public about which roads were most important to them for biking. And some of the ways that we're using that information now, because we have a map that shows the whole state network that VTrans is responsible for, and it's broken down into high, medium, and low priority. And so, for example, when the districts are out there sweeping the roads in the spring, they will use that map to help prioritize where they're going to sweep first. That information also gets used when we're looking at developing, what is the scope of a particular project. The asset management section will look at, is the road on a high priority route? And if that's the case, they might put some additional effort into, say, widening the shoulder on that road. Then phase 2 of that project was more looking at sort of how does the whole state network rank in terms of a bicyclist level of comfort. And we used like a national model that other states have used. We tweaked it a little bit to make it work better for our conditions. Also looked at some crash data to identify sort of hot spots for bicycle crashes. And then again, there's a score that we came up with for all the roads in the state network. And that just helps give us a better picture of like, where do we need to make improvements? So a current effort that is getting close to wrapping up is our bicycle and pedestrian strategic plan, which is an update to a 2008 plan. And really the main goal of the strategic plan is to figure out how we can better or more completely integrate consideration of walking and biking across the agency, so that it's not necessarily just me, which it already isn't, but how can we better work across the agency to consider those 2 modes? And the plan has a number of strategies that are identified across 10 objectives, and there are some key performance indicators that we've identified so that we can kind of track our progress going forward. For example, there is one about increasing the percentage of high priority bike corridors that have 4-foot shoulders. So the strategic plan really builds on the on-road bike plan effort, but it also does more to consider walking in addition to biking. So we're looking to get that wrapped up in February. All right, so I think that is just kind of a big picture view of how the agency is considering walking and biking. And I guess I can stop and take any questions. And I know Jesse is going to talk a little bit more in detail about how we incorporate provisions for walking and biking into our projects.
I got just a question on a bike. Every year when we build new highways, where it's feasible, we always put bike lanes, or we reconstruct our highways. How many miles would you say we add, for example, on an average year like this year? Would we know?
That is a great question. That's actually one of those performance indicators that we've identified in the plan. Okay. I don't know if we have a great I can try to follow up with on that.
I know we do. We make tremendous progress because that's one of the things that we always emphasize, that where possible, we put bike lanes, as you know.
Right.
And I'm just curious because I know over the years we've come a long way, and just an idea of the last 5 years or 3 years of how many miles we did have, because we keep telling the bicycle community we are doing better, and we are making an all-out effort, and I think it would be nice to know. Thank you.
Yep, I can
All right.
definitely follow up
Right
about
ahead.
that.
Move on. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, and Senator Mazza, hello.
Yes.
I can actually provide a little bit of insight into that and give a little bit of a ballpark for
Okay.
what we're looking at when I get to a slide that
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
describes that a little bit.
All right.
So good morning, and it's good to see some familiar faces. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jesse Devlin, and I am the program manager. Go back one slide, John. Thanks. I am the program manager of the Highway Safety and Design section at VTrans. I've been with the agency about 18 years, and I've spent most of my career as an engineer, project manager, or program manager on roadway or intersection improvement projects.
We love to see that screen right now. Those of us who live in the Chittenden County area, we've looked at this for a long time. And we hope the day comes that we can cut the ribbon on that.
Absolutely. And I include that project because it's a good example of a project that's going to be making improvements for vehicular traffic, for pedestrians, for bicyclists. So it's a good example of what we're trying to accomplish with a lot of our higher profile and more complex jobs.
It's Mazza's favorite intersection, like 5 years running.
If there wasn't a famous filling station there, we probably would have this done by now, but we just have to work through the course. That's all.
So John did a great job of providing an overview of many of the ongoing efforts within the agency specific to bike ped. And John, being the agency expert, it's clear and obvious why he was asked to talk to you guys today. I'm here to bring it down to more of a project level discussion and to talk about some of the features that are considered on our construction projects and how they are considered during the design phase. So as program manager, I have 3 design groups that I oversee. This includes pavement design, roadway design, and traffic design. The groups differ primarily in the types of projects that they design and they bring to construction. So for example, the pavement design group works primarily on longer linear paving jobs that has a focus of improving the roadway's surface condition. Roadway design group works on a wide variety of jobs, everything ranging from a large reconstruction job to a project that could replace a single small culvert. And finally, the traffic design group works primarily on projects that are focused on safety and mobility, such as intersection improvements. The most basic description of all 3 groups is that they're focused and responsible for the design of roadway and intersection projects. So John, you can switch slides. Thank you. So to set the stage for kind of the remainder of the discussion, I want to state that construction of a new road is very rare. And I'm an engineer, and I would, of course, love to have projects where I kind of have that blank canvas to, consider everything and make things as perfect as they possibly can be. However, we have many needs on our existing infrastructure, and our focus is really on maintaining and improving what we already have out there. So within the course of a project, our designers are asked to understand the many needs of the roadway users. These are things like safety, mobility, intended use, connectivity. But we also ask them to understand all of the constraints that go along with the design of a project, such as cost and environmental impacts, acquisition of right-of-way, and schedule. So considering all of these factors, we work to really empower our design groups to apply flexibility and think of context-sensitive solutions to improve the situation. So with that said, what are some of the things we are doing within our projects to create roadways that are safe and accessible? So John, if you could switch slides. Senator Mazza, you mentioned kind of the shoulder width, and one of the most impactful treatments when considering bike and ped use and comfort level is the condition of the road. VTrans, we utilize a variety of pavement treatment types within a robust program, and we pave about 200 miles annually. We're constantly looking to deliver these projects more efficiently and less expensive so that we can improve the condition of as many roads as possible. Our paving projects have a wide range of scopes. And as you mentioned, with more of our complex, our comprehensive treatment types, we are looking to provide wider and consistent shoulders. So, just a ballpark number, Senator Mazza, for the question you asked previously, kind of looking at this upcoming year, we'll have about 75 miles that are some of those most complex treatment types. And those are the projects where it is most feasible to, provide those wider shoulders, those consistent shoulders. And so that's a good portion of the program where we are able to make those bike ped systematic improvements.
Oh, good.
John, next slide, please. So we're also working within the course of our projects to improve the safety of pedestrian crossings. Updated equipment is being installed at many signalized intersections, and signage is reviewed and updated to ensure visibility and awareness for drivers. Curb ramps and detectable warning surfaces are updated with our projects to ensure accessibility and compliance with standards. And as shown in the photo on the next slide, John, we've actually had multiple recent projects that have constructed a pedestrian underpass as a component of the project. I'll admit this type of treatment is rare, but it's shown as an illustration of the commitment to installing features that fit with both the road characteristic, the project type, and the intended use. Next slide, please, John. So within our projects, we've also utilized alternative pavement markings. This includes green bike lane markings as well as bike lane buffers. The purpose of these types of markings is to provide drivers with an awareness of the presence of bicyclists, and also, in some cases, to provide separation between bicyclists and vehicular traffic. So, as you all know, pavement markings are a challenge in Vermont, due to weather and associated maintenance requirements. And as such, we really work to ensure that their use is defined for locations where they will provide the most benefit.
Senator Mazza, may I ask a question?
Sure, go right ahead, Senator Chicken.
So Jesse, this somewhat ties into the earlier presenter, but also on this slide right here. I serve on the South Burlington City Council, and we have been, it has been unclear to me with these new e-bikes and ped assist things where the barriers and where the lines are drawn. And I expect more of this blurring. Does VTrans have guidance as to what is defined as something that qualifies to use these lanes and not? Or is that guidance that's still evolving as the technologies and these ped assist devices are coming on the market?
It's a good question. I think it still is evolving, and I don't believe we have a full policy. John, are you aware of any ongoing efforts associated with that?
Sure. So electric assist bikes are currently defined in Vermont state statute. I mean, we're certainly aware that there's an increasing amount of those on the road. I don't think that will really change the infrastructure that we provide because they're going to use the same facilities. State law does distinguish between what most people would call like a moped that's kind of fully motorized, and that requires that kind of vehicle is required to be licensed and has different requirements. But an electric assist bike, basically by current state statute, is the same as a bike. And so we would be, it's not really going to impact the infrastructure that we provide, except to say that, or point to the need to keep working on that infrastructure.
just to follow up, I guess I'd love to see that statute and love to know if it has to do with like top maximum speed, tire width, if it has to do with helmet configurations. That would be clarity that I haven't seen at the municipal level.
Yep, I have. Yep, I can provide something as a follow-up on that.
Senator Mazza.
Yes.
Just on that, I was approached by some electric bike manufacturers, I guess, as an organization about this. They said they introduced the bill in the House, so it'd be interesting to hear AOT's position on the bill in the House, and if they think that's going in the right direction, which I think gets to Senator Jinden's point there, because I think they do by speed. Maximum speed is one of the criteria of deciding whether it's a bike or not.
Thanks. John, you can jump to the next slide, please. So in coordination with pavement markings, VTrans has implemented road diets at select locations. So the picture shown on this slide is of US Route 302 in Berlin, also known as the Barry-Montpelier Road. The road diet, in this case, reduced the number of vehicular travel lanes and repurposed that space to install bike lanes and bike lane buffer. The biggest challenge we saw with this type of application, and I know that some have dealt with this in communities as well, has been really the pre-construction concern and feedback. And since installation of this particular change, it does appear to be working very well, and the post-construction input, both positive and negative, has been limited, which is a good thing. Next slide, please, John. So that was a real quick snapshot of some of the features that may be implemented within our projects. As you guys know, VTrans produces a truly wide range of project types and scopes. And these features, I'll state they're not applicable on all projects. Our focus within the design teams, in order to improve, is to have stronger and increased communication, to understand the features that are working well, but also those that require improvement. We have an emphasis on complete streets, which is really considering the needs of all facility users throughout a project's development. And we're also working to provide clearer information on the types of projects that VTrans produces and create a better understanding amongst towns and general public and the advocacy groups on the type of work we perform and the type of features that would be considered within different types of projects. John, if you can jump one more slide, please. So what are the next steps? To me, the most critical piece is the continuation of education. And I use that loosely, but our designers need to continue to have the opportunity to learn and understand bike ped features. And VTrans needs to clearly convey the types of features and improvements that are feasible within different project types. We're implementing a lot of different features, some successful, some requiring improvement. And we all need to kind of continue to learn from those installs. Some of the specific features that we have identified that we'll be digging into a little bit deeper include the bike lane and buffer widths, bike lane buffer tapers, when is pavement removal beneficial, and also shoulder rumble strip installation, as well as truck turning movements and how those impact intersections. So I think that our agency has really made some huge strides over the past 10 to 15 years. And while I know that there is still and always will be room for improvement, I do feel that considering bicyclists and pedestrians is now ingrained in the design process. And it's an active consideration of our designers throughout the process. And that's huge. These are pieces that are being considered at the concept stage, before they even become a project. So that scope is better defined when it's handed off. And, I really think that the progress being made is beneficial to everyone. And our designers are constantly coordinating with John. You know, they're bouncing ideas back and forth on the right treatment and the applicability. And it's really creating, you know, more comprehensive and complete designs. And our designers, you know, I'll fully admit, they have a challenging job of understanding the needs on a roadway, but also the constraints associated with that same design. And we continue to work to, you know, to balance those two pieces and incorporate improvements that are and can be made within the project's scope. So I think that's all I have. So Senator Mazza, I'll turn it back over to you. There's questions.
Okay, any questions about the program?
Yes.
Yes, Senator Perchlik.
Yeah, Jesse, the bullet point there about removing pavement when that is beneficial, can you just give me a quick example of that?
Sure. Well, there's some roadways that are or were overbuilt for their current use. So when they were built, the shoulders, for example, may be too wide. And, you know, they were anticipating more traffic or higher truck traffics, different volumes than they're actually seeing today. So what I mean by pavement removal is there's a couple factors at play. If we have more pavement than is needed, there's a maintenance need there. But there's also a situation where vehicles may begin to use the shoulder in manners where it shouldn't be. So using the shoulder more for passing and things like that, which could be not be beneficial to a bicyclist or a pedestrian. So it's not reducing it significantly. It's making it so it would be more applicable for the intended use of bike ped features.
So the bike and the pedestrian would still feel comfortable as far as the width, but it's not so wide that cars feel like they can pass on the right side down the.
Exactly.
Okay.
We've had that. The way we're dealing with that now is really on a case by case basis. We've had a couple instances. So the one that comes to mind is Route 66 in Randolph, where it was kind of overbuilt in the vicinity of the interstate interchange. So within that section, we actually reduced the shoulder. I think it was down to 6 feet. So there's still adequate room for a bicyclist to feel comfortable, but it's not a maintenance or operational detriment.
Yeah, I see that a lot on Route 2 by the Casella transfer station. Whenever there's somebody turning left into the transfer station, all the cars just go onto the shoulder there because it's a nice wide shoulder there, which the bikes probably like until there's a car driving down there. Thank you.
You a bicyclist, Senator Perchlik?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
Not on a regular basis these days, but I used to do a lot of biking.
Any other questions, comments? Okay,
Yes, I'd
thank you
ask-
very much. Yes,
May I ask one more, Senator Mazza?
sure, go right ahead.
So you raise a concern that I'm going to continually think about self-driving vehicles because I feel like they're on the horizon and we're looking right now, there are self-driving cars out there and the technologies are going to keep coming online. And I understand from what little research I've done, they're very dependent on the markings on the road. But you raise a very good point. In Vermont, these green bars, these safety zones that you were just illustrating are you can't see when there's snow on the road. So bikers and automobilists that aren't familiar with the roadways are in trouble. How much are we considering self-driving cars when it comes to roadways and bicycle safety with regards to these markings and how we're going to communicate them to these increasingly intelligent vehicles? Is that something that is on your radar, or is this just a far-fetched sci-fi talk that I shouldn't waste the committee's time on?
I don't think it's a far-fetched sci-fi talk. So I'm answering that part of the question. In terms of kind of the outlook, VTrans is at the early stages. We know this is coming, and even with self-driving vehicles, even take away the pavement markings, there's issues with kind of the snow on the road. So I mean, that's one of the biggest issues with that. So I mean, there's a lot of factors at play with Vermont and our climate. Our group, so within traffic design, we actually produce annual projects that refresh line striping on our state and class 1 and class 2 networks. And right now we're using essentially paint to refresh those lines. And, as these change, as, these come more online and more into Vermont, we're going to need to really kind of focus on that to ensure that we have the retroreflectivity. There's a couple changes coming. We think there will be some new standards that are coming out that we're going to need to adapt to at the state level. So that's going to help drive that conversation. So I think that your question is very timely. I will say we're at the early stages, but there's definitely information coming in. And we as an agency, we've had some trainings and things on the automated vehicles and what that's going to mean to the transportation community. And it's significant. And we've identified, at least within my group, we've identified some of our younger engineers who might actually kind of see this through the entire phase of concept to, actually seeing them on our road and being in a vehicle like that. We've identified them as key players in this process as a whole, because it's a lot more than just pavement markings. It's the whole communication, talking back and forth between all our infrastructure. And there's a lot of work that needs to go in, and we've got some smart people who are engaged and interested. So.
Thank you.
Can you ride your bike, Senator Kitchell, up there in Caledonia County, or?
No. Actually, we have the Lemoyne.
You had to think about it. You have the Lemoyne Trail. Yes.
I had vintage Raleigh 10-speed bikes that were 50 years old in the barn. My son took them and had them, tuned up. And the bike shop said they had never seen bikes of that age in such pristine condition. So not only have I got the cat, but I've lost my bikes to my son.
There. Probably sold them, get a lot of money for them,
Apparently, 50-year-old 10 speeds that are quite, it's like having a vintage car, Senator.
There you go.
Yeah, might as well start collecting bikes pretty soon.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments this morning on this issue? Thank you very much for giving us a good overview. And if we have further questions, we'll get back to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so switching gears, our last folks to testify today is our Maintenance Bureau, and I'll turn it over to Todd Law.
Okay.
Good morning. For the record, my name's Todd Law. I'm the director of the Maintenance Bureau for the Vermont Agency of Transportation. As I'm sure you all know, this is something that usually is very well received by the committee. We brought some of our maintenance district employees with us to talk about what they face every day, their experience, and such like that. And any remaining time, we've also brought our maintenance engineer to talk about the results of the back to the basics emphasis on our activities. So today we've brought kind of a wide variety here. We brought Kevin Gadapy, who's the Northeast Region Transportation Administrator. So he's responsible for District 7 and 9, St. Johnsbury and Derby. We've also brought Tracy Pack, who is the District 3 Transportation General Maintenance Manager. So she's down in the Rutland area. Victoria Biller, who's District 2, Londonderry. She's the Transportation Area Maintenance Supervisor. So she's down in the Southeast. And to round off the maintenance workers, we brought Sean LaFountain, who's in District 5, Colchester, the Fort. And he's also a Transportation Area Maintenance Supervisor. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to kick things off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Good morning, Senators. Appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you folks this morning. So as Todd said, I am the Northeast Region Transportation Administrator, which is District 7, St. Johnsbury, District 9, and Derby. I've been with the agency a couple different times, about 6 years total. I had that sandwiching about 15 years of me being in the municipal world. I was my town road foreman in Danville for a period of time. So highway maintenance has been a part of my life for my entire career. My job description as a regional manager. I work very closely with Todd in the chief engineer's office. I consider my main function is supporting the staff, the folks that are in the field, help them define some district goals, some missions that we've been asked to take care of, which includes our back to the basic list, to try to schedule that and to meet our best management practices, our goals, and to develop any changes that we can become more efficient. We have a lot of ideas. The people in the field, the men and women that are out there, boots on the ground, they have a lot of ideas to improve our efficiencies, which is a way that we can save money. So we take those very seriously as well. And obviously, one of my the most important goals is to track our district funding and manage that, develop the year-to-year budget with the chief engineer's office and the director, and work closely together to enable us to meet our goals and stay within the allotted funding available. A couple things I wanted to share. Todd wanted me to share a story, and everybody knows the challenges of COVID that struck our state and the nation and the world. We have had to adjust our practices substantially over the past year. Some of these changes I think you folks have seen as you travel the highways. I want to give you a brief example. This past spring, when COVID struck early, a challenge, we do litter cleanup, and that's our major task in the spring. We had to adjust keeping people separated. So instead of seeing a work crew of maybe 6 or 8, you might see a litter crew of 2, and then travel down the road a mile and see another crew of 2. This was a challenge for us to do our back to the basics everyday task and meet the guidances. Keeping all our employees safe was the top priority for all of us. And it was a really group effort, even from the chief engineer's office right down to our maintenance workers, to try to derive a plan that we can continue meeting our goals as maintenance workers, which the public relies on us, and do so in a safe manner. So some of the things that was pretty challenging first thing this spring, and we've learned a lot. We lessons learned from guidances from the administration. We've learned a lot, and we will continue to keep our employees very safe during the COVID pandemic. I think we have a great plan in place. We adjust as more information is available, and we really have a lot of buy-in from all our employees in the garages. I think that's vital for us. Another task, we always think of maintenance workers as winter maintenance. We are the ones that drive the big orange trucks and plow the snow. We have a great snow and ice control plan. I know you guys have heard of this plan in the future, and we follow it religiously. But with that, we continue to strive to make efficiency changes. Technology is a huge help for us. We use different blade technology to scrape the roads. Our trucks are high-tech vehicles now. Even in the 35, 40 years I've been in the business, the changes in that short amount of time is enormous. The technology changes really help us. We have GIS services and mapping and tracking for other tasks that we do, from litter to ditching to sweeping. I think we saw an example from Jesse or John about our sweeping best management practices with a map, and that's all GIS related. So we try to use all the available technology to enable us to work more efficiently and obviously more safely. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I'm open to taking some questions. If you guys have something from me, I would do my best to answer them. I know we have a lot of maintenance workers here that have a lot to add as well. So if you have some questions, please.
Okay. All right. At this time, let's continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tracy, if you're ready, would you please start your presentation? Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Senators. Good morning, fellow AOT. I don't really have a presentation set up. I didn't really know what to expect. I'm in week 55 of my new position here as a general manager in District 3. I have been with the agency. I started in 1999, May of 1999, and became full-time in November of 2001. So almost 20 years full-time, a little over 20 years cumulative. I've worked with the traffic shop is where I started as a temporary, and through a civil rights program was able to get my CDL. Then I moved on to construction after, that was in 2008, so after 7 years. And after construction in 2015, I moved to the materials section under CMB, and was the aggregate unit supervisor for 2 years. And just recently came to the maintenance side for the first time in my 20 years. And I'm still learning every day.
What district is this? Are you in?
District 3.
Which is where?
Rutland area.
Rutland, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So it's had an interesting set of challenges, trying to learn a new position in the middle of a pandemic. I think it was week 15 of my new job, still learning everything every day, and all of a sudden the whole world just changed, and our direction changed, and our abilities changed. And I'm very fortunate to work with a fantastic team. Anything we've asked of any mission has been accomplished before the due date on every turn. So
Well, thank you for your hard work. It's a tough job, but great. Glad you're doing it. Good.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Senator Kitchell.
Tracy said she was general manager. Kevin, your title is not that. What's the difference? What's the difference between what you do and Tracy does? What's a general manager versus?
So I can do my best, Senator Kitchell, explaining. I have 2 districts. I'm in charge of 2 districts and budgetary responsibilities. Tracy is a general manager, which is manages in her, I believe, and Tracy hop in if I misspeak, manages the garages and their staff. That would be her major task.
So Kevin, do you have a general manager that you supervise?
Yes, Senator Kitchell, I have 1 in District 7 and 1 in District 9 both. There's a general manager for each district. The DTA position is split up into regional. We each have 2 districts.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Senator Kitchell might be looking for a position somewhere, Get her CDL license. Get her CDL license.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a guardrail between here and Montpelier.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions at this point? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next we'll have Victoria Biller from District 2. Tori, if you'd like to introduce yourself, talk about your experience and more about your job. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all, and good morning. Thanks for having everyone. My name is Victoria Biller. I'm the Transportation Area Maintenance Supervisor for the Londonderry and Jamaica garages in District 2. I've been in this position about a year. So last January, beginning of the month, I started, and similar to Tracy, learning this new position. All of a sudden COVID kicked in, and it was a whole brand new set of skills to learn on top of everything else. So it's been pretty wild. But I've been with the agency for 5.5 years. So I started in this garage in Londonderry and worked up from a temp to an apprentice to a journeyman. And now I'm the super. So my experience has been positive all along. It's a wonderful place to work. It's great having the variety every single day. You never know what's going to happen. You could change gears at the drop of a hat. It's pretty wonderful. And I would say that I'll talk briefly. I know I only have a couple minutes, but I guess one of the major challenges that I've seen personally, at least in this area of Vermont and Southern Vermont, would be the environmental impacts that like our warmer winters have had on our winter maintenance in general, and how that's been, it's been driving the cost of our winters up, just knowing that the classic super cold, dry winter snowstorms are becoming more rare, and we're having more heavy, wet snow. We're having a lot more freezing rain, a lot more ice. It's causing us to use more salt, have to have more man hours on the road physically, to not be able to leave the roads, because when you have ice, you can't leave them alone for a second. But the classic winter storms, overnight, maybe you could get a couple hours in and come back early morning and have some snow even on the road. But that would be a main challenge that I've seen, just increasingly warmer winters, and it's driving up the costs of the winters in general. But I mean, we persevere, we still make it work. But it's just interesting to see the difference and the contrast of how it affects everything in a chain reaction, and how it affects truck maintenance. The heavy wet snow is rougher on the equipment, just the man hours on the road, a lot more lake effect snow, being that the Great Lakes don't freeze over as soon as do, things like that. But as it was mentioned before, we keep adapting and we keep making it work, and it's been a fun 5.5 years. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Thank you.
One of the things I've always liked about the agency is that they have some real dedicated people, and they love their jobs, and they promote within, and it's just been always a good feeling, because it is a tough job in the winter months, and you never know when you're going to be called out or when you're going to be working a lot of hours. And so I thank you for your commitment to those jobs very, very much. Questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate the overview.
Can I have a quick question?
Yes, Senator Perksley.
Victoria, are you seeing more frost heaves as well as the changes? That's just my anecdotal impression that there's been more, but I don't know if that's been borne out by the data that V-Trans has as far as frost heaves on our roads.
Right. So in our area, I have noticed more recently, specifically in areas that are more fluffy, and the surface of the road is a lot softer than normal.
Victoria, take off your video, because we can't hear you that well. Perhaps your connection will be better if you take your video off and just speak.
Is that better? Hopefully. So I have noticed more of the frost heaves, specifically in areas of floodplain, where our roads go through, and some base is a lot softer, just more to your comment. But I have noticed frost heaves in areas that were not previously there. We have seen an increase in that for sure. So we have a stockpile of bump signs that we keep at hand for times like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Next.
So I just wanted to add one thing, and one of the reasons why I asked Victoria to speak today, she kind of undersold herself a little bit. Victoria has been an extremely helpful supervisor down in the Southeast. She's been very engaged in multiple recruitment efforts we've had, and also including some diversity recruitment. We've had an issue with recruiting and retaining minorities, women, and people of color. And Tori has been extremely active in getting out to a lot of the technical centers, etc. So she has been an absolute wonderful advocate for the Agency of Transportation. She mentors employees. She's really earned her stripes in becoming a supervisor. She mentors, she trains. I've been very impressed. We have a fairly large maintenance bureau, but there's some people that really do stand out, and we brought them here today. So same thing with Tracy. She undersold herself. Tracy's been volunteering for the maintenance bureau for quite a few years. She's been a plow driver, etc. So she does understand what we do, and she's learning very, very quickly. So,
That's
so
great.
I
Nice.
just wanted to add that they've definitely undersold themselves, which is typical.
Good to hear. I'm glad to hear they're on our team, because they play an important role, and it's good to have them. They're very dedicated. Like I've always thought, the employees are very dedicated to the agency. It's a tough job, and I'm glad they're doing it. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Senator Mazza. So last but certainly not least, from our maintenance district employees is Sean LaFountain, who's the area maintenance supervisor up in the fort. So we'll give Sean some time to explain his background, his experience here, and
that's the Colchester area. You want to take notice, senators? That's the Colchester area. Okay.
And you've probably seen him on the TV quite a bit. He's been in videos. He's our superstar up there. Of course, most of the media outlets are up there. So Sean has willingly stepped in and been on TV and video.
Job, but somebody's got to do it.
Exactly, and it takes me out of that.
Go ahead.
Good morning, all. My name is Sean LaFountain. I'm the Transportation Area Maintenance Supervisor for Colchester Garage. I've been here for 12 and a half years at the agency. I started out as a maintenance worker 4, and I've worked my way to a Transportation Area Maintenance Supervisor now. So a little background is I grew up being the son of a road foreman. So typical snow day, I'd always want to go for a ride in the truck with my dad and learn everything about the truck. So I've rode around for years before I even started plowing. And I've been doing this type of work since high school, either road maintenance or snow plowing for residential or commercial accounts. So I don't know if you know what TAMs are, but I'll give you a little brief explanation of that. Is during the wintertime, we're out 2 o'clock in the morning. We're the ones out patrolling the roads, checking the roads, calling in the drivers, scheduling the overnight staff and coverage that we're going to have to cover the roads, instructing the drivers what to put down, addressing issues that we have out there on the roadways or complaints or whatever the situation may be. During the summertime, we're still on call 24/7 for any problems that come up, emergency problems or anything like that. So one of the things in the area that I love what I do for work. I like the job. I care about what I do for work. I care about the final presentation of the job done. Like I said, with my history in excavation and maintenance, I like to take pride in all the work that we do, and being in a high volume area where a lot of our work seen by everybody else. So one of the challenges is being in this high volume area is the recruitment and retention of employees. We have a really hard time recruiting employees. For example, we're hiring people to start out as an apprentice with no CDL at $14.80 an hour, or with a CDL to come in at $16.25, when we have other municipalities and towns that are offering $19 and $21 an hour. And a lot of the people we see come through the door, we help them train, get their CDL, and they turn around and leave to go to a municipality that's paying more. And we invest a lot of training in there, and it's an expensive cost to see people leave. We'd like to see, some pays come up and to recruit for the existing, but not only recruit. And I have participated in a lot of job fairs and everything else in the area, and the interest is not in this career anymore. And for what we're paying for people to start, is really challenging to have them start.
I'm surprised the CDL is so low, because they're in demand. Everybody's looking for a CDL.
Exactly. There's a shortage of CDL drivers everywhere. And that's what we're seeing is these other towns. Like I know one of the other neighboring towns just are bringing people in at the apprentice level that we would, and they're paying them $19 an hour, where we can only offer them $14.80 an hour. So we're having a really hard, challenging time, because like a lot of these companies around here, just for a standard truck driver, and we do so much more than driving truck we labor and all other sorts of jobs. They're only getting paid, just some driving trucks getting $18 an hour, and we do so much more, and we're trying to recruit people at that price range is really challenging for this.
Is there a higher wage at night or weekends, or how's that work?
No, it's all the same. We don't get a shift differential or anything like that. We do get an on-call pay of $2,000 a year to be on call from December 1st to April 1st. And that's averages out to be about $18 a day to be on call. But for the little, for that wage of what we're offering to offer other truck drivers, and for asking someone to be on call 24/7 during them periods, and holidays and everything, it's a really not competitive to the rest of the area around here.
Wow, I'm surprised it's that low. I didn't realize it was that low, because the demand for truck drivers with CDLs is very high. I mean, everybody's looking for them.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, for those comments, and obviously for the work and your crews do. And maybe Senator Ingalls and Chin had the same experience on their select boards and city council. Is when I was on select board, we were basically either stealing truck drivers from other towns or from the state. And maybe it's something that the state needs to talk about, how much training we give to the drivers, and then they go to work for the municipalities. It's kind of one of the services that we give the towns that doesn't get monetized, that we might want to think about, because the towns are always saying we don't give them enough money. So that's one of the things that we're doing, is we're training a lot of drivers. But I appreciate that in the work that you're doing, and we should think about how we can be more supportive.
Correct. And also, a lot of people come here to get the CDL because we pay for their training and stuff. Where you go to CDL schools, $5,000, and we invest our time in training in them, and they make the little bit of money till they get their CDL, and then they leave to go to a position where they can be paid a lot more. So
yeah,
I just
even a small town like Marshfield, when I was on the select board, which was a few years ago now, we were paying $19 or $20 an hour. So, if a small municipality like Marshfield, a small crew, can do that, then it's difficult for the state.
Do you think the $2,000 incentive or the pay for on-call should be done away with and do it more on a per hour basis? Would that make any sense, or no?
I think it would make more sense. I mean, I know that the on-call is nice to have also, but these other towns, the on-call is nice, but it's the hour wage that a lot of people are looking for. Not a lot of young people coming into this career are looking at the benefits and that sort of thing. They're looking at the wage difference. And, in order to do the wage difference, and my thing is, if the minimum wage goes up to $15 an hour, like you're talking, that's less than what we're paying right now.
That's
so
right.
We're going to have to bring it up all levels of the employees, from, the whole chain, the whole way up through, to make it competitive for your existing employees that already been here and have the years of dedication and service, compared to someone that just comes through the door also.
It's costing me $12 an hour for high school kids, just work part-time and, as cashier. So that's not a lot more for the experience to be,
Correct. And you live here in the area, from what I heard, and, you drive around and see the signs of people advertising and stuff. And then, and that's the biggest thing. We go to these job fairs, which Essex Tech was one of the better job fairs I've been to recruit people. But even still, people are coming and saying, that's all you're offering for me to start there, when I can go to so-and-so down the road and start at $18 an hour with no experience, and don't have to be on call, and I work Monday through Friday.
Senator Mazza.
Yes, go right ahead.
And to add on to Senator Perchlik, we did offer more in our town, but we also didn't offer any benefits whatsoever, none. And I don't know of any towns around me that do offer any type of benefits, any of the insurance or retirement and stuff like that. And I would have, and to further what Mr. LaFountain's saying, I did have people who would want to leave the state and come to us. And obviously we'd love to hire them, but being the type of people that we are, where we want to see people do better in life, we talk to them and we draw it all out to them and explain to them that, well, maybe you ought to be staying where you're at, because the benefits that you're receiving with your retirement and all, when you add it all up, and sometimes it doesn't make a difference. But a lot of these towns aren't offering the benefits that the state employees are receiving. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Senator Mazza.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, I agree completely, Senator Ingalls. We need to communicate the benefits of working at the state more, so that we can retain all of the employees that give so much heart and soul to the job. The other side of this is, I hope that your team, everybody that's out there plowing at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve feels appreciated. You're the unsung heroes of Vermont. And I want to see more recognition for the tireless long hours you all do keeping the roads safe. So I don't know what we do in the form of recognition for your service throughout these cold winter months, but I know in South Burlington, I serve on the city council there, as I mentioned previously. I don't think we do enough, and we always need to do more to make sure that people are appreciated for all the long hours that you do keeping the roads safe.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Appreciate hearing it. Thank you.
Agreed. Very much so.
Something that we should consider as we're talking about changes to the pension system, I think, as these people that have been working. I think specifically for the plow drivers, what I heard when I was on the select board is that the being on call on, like you said, Senator Chittenden, on Christmas Eve, you got to leave your kids and go do a plow route. You'll be gone for many hours is difficult. So I know some of the people that thought they wanted to do it, once they realized on a Saturday night they got to go plowing, whether they want to or not, it was the difficult thing is the hours. And as people are on their families, it makes it more difficult.
Exactly. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I think I spent one Christmas morning with her opening up presents, and up here in the Chittenden County area, I do know that a lot of the towns are getting more competitive with what they have to offer for their benefits and stuff, being part of the city leagues and town union.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you. That was a great presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to round this off, I'm going to introduce our maintenance engineer, Shane Morin, and he's going to go through some of the results of our back to the basic emphasis on our maintenance activities.
Okay.
Hey folks, it seems like just yesterday we're meeting for the first time, some of us last year. So yeah, I've only been in this position for about a year now, and learned a great deal along the way. And but prior to that, and a little background is that I started with the agency in 2001 and construction, working as an inspector, and then on to structures from there, and worked there for a few years, and into bridge inspection for a couple of years, and then back out to construction as a resident engineer, and then into maintenance. And since in maintenance, I worked as a technician on up through supervisor, manager, and here I am now. So it's been quite a journey in maintenance. So there were some areas in the agency where I'd find myself maybe bored at times, but I can honestly say, since I've been in maintenance, there's not been a boring day. That's for sure. We have a great team and a big team. But one of the things that really stands out to me leading up to this in this journey so far is when I first started, I didn't know many other people from the other bureaus in our agency, and it wasn't common practice for them to communicate, and at times, and some did, but for the most part, I was kind of stuck in my little bubble, so to speak, for a lot of it. And one of the biggest shifts that I just wanted to point out here now, because I think it means a lot, is the blending of our different bureaus and how we work together, and to get to be the most efficient agency that we can be, and to leverage all of the strengths of different teams. We're reaching out to different bureaus for in these challenging times, who has a CDL license, who has certain aptitudes in certain areas that we can leverage and use people to the best of their ability, and it makes them feel good about what they're doing and what we're doing, and it also brings a lot of good things to light. And whether it be working with Jesse Devlin and Roadway, and our district project management teams that serve the municipalities locally, and some of the projects that they work on. There's been a lot of good communication and strong communication that makes us do all that we can do with the limited resources that we typically run into. There'll always be limited resources, but we'll learn how to do the best we can with what we do have, which I think is great. So, and I appreciate all the other maintenance speakers on here. They do a great job there. And as you can see, we're a young team for the most part. There's most of the folks here that spoke in maintenance are. So we're certainly seeing an evolution, and we're finding opportunities with this evolution in what we're doing in the business, and that we do in the public that we serve, and in working with each other in our own teams, both our teams internally and externally. I think they've done an outstanding job at really bringing a lot of things forward, communicating whether they're tough things at times or whether they're things to celebrate, and it's a good thing. And one of the things too, I think it's important that we do celebrate our retirement plan, because when we look at that, we're pretty fortunate to have that benefit, which is hard to find out in the industries today. But so I just wanted to say express my appreciation for that. But yeah, let me see if I can get these slides shared here. I don't have a whole lot on there for you, and I can certainly dive further into these and provide more.
We've only got about another 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. Then we have to go on the floor. So go right ahead. Yep.
So if I keep digressing, we won't have to.
Well, that's fine. No, go right ahead. No.
All right. So I did want to highlight some of the back to the basic activities. There's all upwards of 1,000 or so different activity codes that we all have, that we tag for different various things. But these are some of the ones that we would typically see in our maintenance bureau, and some of the ones that we wanted to highlight, such as pavement markings, and guardrails installation and repair, tree clearing and brush cutting, mowing, small culverts repair, replacement. In small culverts, there's a few additional, in much of these other activities, there's a lot of other things such as GIS, some data collection, some condition assessments, and a lot of other things going in parallel into these activities, ditching, sweeping, pavement markings, and sign installation repairs, and bridge washing and bridge maintenance. Some of these activities we're going through an evolution of how we go about managing those assets, which I'm glad to see and glad to be part of. And not only with that, the evolution of how we look at our assets and manage our assets, we're also looking at, that also helps to work with other bureaus in that. So that's been a great platform, and as say performance management per se is we're looking at these assets holistically, and not even just within maintenance, but as an agency as a whole. So it's been great to work with our other teams. So we not only have a lot of fun, we getting a lot of work done and bringing a lot of things to light, that opportunities that may have been missed and likely missed in years past. So this is just some of the accomplishments and expenditures that go into some of these activities. There's in general, and feel free to jump in or ask some questions or stop me if there's more that you want to focus on here or discuss.
Well, you break it down well, a lot of different departments. Yeah.
And I can back up too if folks want to discuss any of these different things a little bit further.
We still use pavement markings, pretty much paint or a lot of tape, or how they mix them up?
Yeah, it all depends. We largely use paint, waterborne paint, unless they're doing thermal or typically it's when it's a federally funded project, larger project that comes through, they'll do, they'll apply some of the more robust treatments because they're more costly, and it's great to have that federal matching share when you have that expense that goes into it. One of the hard things with those two, like it was kind of alluded to before by Jesse, is we lose the retro reflectivity. We may still have the pavement marking, the durable line there, but we lose some of the retro reflectivity from the plowing and other activities that we do. And so that even though it may look fine during the daytime, we lose that shine or that we're looking for. So there's a lot of different models that they use to choose those, but waterborne and just painting and beads are largely what we'll be doing in maintenance. Are there any questions or looking for more information or discussion on these?
Senator Mazza?
Yes, go right ahead.
I just want to parrot what Director Law has said about some of the other staff members. Shane Moran's a rock star. And we're very lucky to have him in this agency, and my interactions with him have been just nothing but the best. And really, he, as a select board member, he was involved with a lot of our projects, and he did an excellent job of educating, and very glad, Mr. Moran, to see you moving up through the ranks. Thank you.
Well, he'll take care of the potholes in front of your house today, okay?
I appreciate that.
Is that how this works?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ingles. I wasn't sure if you remember.
I remember you well. I remember you well.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, don't you know all the potholes are in every senator's district?
Yes. Yes.
No.
Right. Yeah, we certainly have our fair share of those. And what's been recently enjoyable is working with our Asset Management Bureau and our Roadway Bureau with Jesse and having the discussion that I'm sure folks are glad to hear that we're having of, all right, so this is how much we're spending in maintenance on this road, and that's part of the equation. And it's nice that we have such a good communication between our bureau, and we can bring those things to light. And it's been a good journey.
Secretary Flynn and I live in the same district, so the governor is always kidding us about how come there's no potholes in your district? I don't know. Anyway, any other questions this morning? Great morning. Appreciate it. Anything
Excellent.
else? If not, that wraps us up for this morning, and we can get on the floor in a few minutes, give you a break to before we go on.
Thank you.